And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we're talking about NBA draft prospect Bogoljub Markovic and if the Chicago Bulls should take a look at him in this upcoming NBA draft. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. So make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we're talking about NBA draft prospect Bogoljub Markovic. And so we're going to be calling him Bogey for the purpose of this video. This is his nickname that he goes by. And so I got this particular prospect from an article that was posted. And within this article, it talks about just him as a draft prospect. And I must say, after looking at this article, taking a look at some videos and highlights and looking at some stats, this player definitely looks intriguing. And so who is Bogoljub Markovic? And so if you're not familiar with him, he is a 6'11" forward that is out of Serbia. And he's 19 years old, and he played for the BC Mega team. He also played in the G League fall game, and he also played very well in the 2025 Nike Summit game. In fact, he did very well there and turned some heads. And so right now, currently, he is ranked 27th on the Ringer. And so keep in mind, the Ringer hasn't updated their draft profile, I think, in a little bit here, but he's rated 27th. You can see that some of the icons that they give him is a catch and shoot threat. They also talk about the middle game, and they talk about he's got the dog in him. I love that. But more importantly, I love the headline here. So grit and skill wrapped into a stretch four burrito with some areas, of shakiness to figure out. And so we're going to talk about his numbers, the pros, the cons, and if the Chicago Bulls should take a look at him. And so let's go ahead and jump into the numbers. And so you will see a player that really got traction in year three with BC Mega. And so as a starter, looks like that he put up some solid numbers. And so 13.7 points a game. He had 2.7 assists, 0.8 with the steals, 0.8 with the blocks, 6.8 rebounds a game. He shot 53.8 from the field and 37% from deep and 76% from the free throw line. So some solid percentages. That is something that definitely you love that if you're looking at the potential of drafting him. Now, one of the things that we're going to go back and circle around is that he had 2.7 as his turnovers. And so we'll talk about that here in a moment. But let's go ahead and let's jump into the things that just really stand out with Bogey here. And so the first thing with him is that he is very good in transition. You're looking at a player that at his height, he's very fluid. He can get up and down on the break. And so if he gets the ball off of a rebound, he has the ability to dribble down and finish the play with either a dunk or a layup. And also, too, he's terrific at running the floor. And so that is definitely a plus, especially if we were looking at him with the Chicago Bulls, because that's what they want to do. They want to play with some up-tempo. And so he's a player that can dribble it down, or he's a player that can run down and finish a break for you. So terrific in transition. And so next up with him, he's terrific as a catch and shoot player. And so if you look at his highlights, you will see a player that a lot of times players kicked out to him and he knocks down the shot because he has a very good balance to his shot. He has a nice, I think, shooting mechanics to it. And he has a nice arc on his shot too as well, holds his follow through. And so everything looks good there. So he's a terrific catch and shoot player. Next, the next thing that I like about him, and this goes into what is mentioned in the Ringer there, is he does have the dog in him. I think that he definitely competes at a high level. And so that is something that absolutely I love. I think that any player that comes in and competes, that is a player that you love him because he may not have necessarily the skills initially that you want, but the fact that he's willing to go through it and really run through a wall for you on either end of the floor, that's something that can certainly translate because eventually the skills can catch up if that work ethic translates with that mentality. So I love that about him. You will see that he will give multiple efforts, I think, on defense, and also to his activity level looks pretty good. So next with him, the next thing that I like about him is he can score with either hand in the post. And so I think he was pretty fluent down there in the post. Like he will definitely go to his left. He will go to like this running jump hook or whatnot. So he seems very comfortable scoring with either hand. So he has a nice feel to the game. And that kind of goes into, again, something that was mentioned in the ringer with the fact that he has a little bit of a mid game. And so he can hit the mid-range jumper if need be. He can get to the box as well. So he did look pretty good and fluent with his footwork down there. So I like that. Next up, I think he has good awareness with the pick and roll. And so when you look at the pick and roll highlights, like this is a player that he understands what the defense is doing. And so if the defense is sagging off, he will run for the pop. If it is a situation where the defense commits, he knows how to go for the roll. He has terrific hands. And so I think that you can hit him, with the wild passes and the bullets and things like that. And he'll be able to catch those and finish too. So I like that with a big, because sometimes the pass is not always going to be perfect. And I think that he's a player that can certainly make it happen for you on the pick and roll. And I love the fact that he's good at reading it. And so that's something also too that would translate with this current version of the Bulls. And so next with him, I think as a passer, he's solid. I think that he's a player that he's not going to be on a highlight reel or anything like that, but he's terrific, I think, as a connector, making the pass to the open man. So that means that if he comes out of the pick and roll, the short roll and things like that, he will look for the open man. And so he will try to find you. He does have bounce passes and things like that he will bounce in the traffic, which I think is why you see the turnovers are so high for him, that because of the passes that he'll make down there, it seems a bit risky. But for the most part, I see a solid connector as a passer. And so that's good to know. And he will be looking for the open man. So he's not just locked in on the rim. So I like that. And so defensively with him, here's the thing. So he's got some quickness with him. You can tell that he gives the effort to get back to his man if it's on a pick and roll, and he shows. And so I do like that. I think he'll be able to show on guards. He'll also be able to go out on a mobile big, so a 4 or 5. He'll be able to step out there with them that way. I think that another thing that he has too is that he's got some good length. And so he's not necessarily going to get you with the block shots. The defense is something that he will have to work on. I think at times he's been out of position, but he will throw his hands up there, make it tough on the opposing player to score the basket. And I think he had some good hands too as well. And so like if there were opportunities for him to jump into the passing lane, then he made plays that way. And so I like to see that. And it's like one of those things where he'll get back to the man, and then he's also too trying to find ball as well. So it's almost like playing corner or safety, the way that he was kind of going back to his man. So I do like that, and that would lead to some steals and things like that. So that's one of the things to note, is that he's pretty fluent on defense. And so next with his handle, and so his handle is decent. It's not like it's spectacular, because I just talked about the fact that he will, take it off of a rebound, and then he can go down and he can finish on the break, because he does have a solid handle. He does have a nice, good step through. So the Euros and things like that are solid, especially at that size at 6'11". So I definitely like that. And so those are really the pluses with his game. And so now when you look at the weakness, the first weakness with him is that he's got to get much stronger, because if he's going to have to step out, and play some 5s and some 4s, which he is, he's going to have to get much, much stronger, especially on the defensive end, because I can see that players are going to be able to put him in trouble when they get him on the box. And then the next thing with him is that his foul rate was high. I think 3.2 fouls is what I saw, I think, in his Yahoo profile. And so he's definitely got to cut that down as far as the fouls. The next up, I talked about this a little bit with the on-ball defense. At times he can be out of position, and so he's got to get a lot better there. And then next, I think with him, he has to become a better shot creator. And so For as good as he is right now with the handle, he's not a player that it's like, okay, he'll dribble and then he'll get you into a step back and things like that. It seems like it's very basic for the most part. And I think that when you get to the next level, he's going to have to become a bit more craftier with that, especially if he's going to be a big that's going to play out on the perimeter like that. You're going to have to be a little bit more trickier with your handle and setting up your defense. And so that's something that he's going to have to get better at as a creator. And it'll probably open it up more for him as a passer as well, because once he starts to bring additional defenders in with that handle, he'll be able to make some more clean, crisp passes that way, because the defense will be forced to rotate, and that gives you space to make those passes and counting on your teammate rotating to the right spot too. But still, he's got to become a bit more of a creator. And so next with him, when you look at the potential and what this could mean, for a team taking a chance on him, and mainly I'm looking at the Chicago Bulls, he has the potential to be a two-way player if he works out. And so I think that this is a player that if he does get it together defensively and offensively with the things that I mentioned, then there's the potential that you could have a 6'11" forward that can be a two-way player. Next, when you're looking at the Chicago Bulls, what do they need? They need front court help. And so he immediately would give the Bulls front court help. And I'm not willing to say that he's going to be a center. I think that initially he's going to have to play the power forward until he gets stronger. And so he's definitely going to help the front court in that area with the Chicago Bulls. And that's something that they need. Next, you're talking about the versatility. And so when you're talking about a player at that height that can step back and knock down shots, he can get out and run. He is willing to get into the mid-range and things like that. Terrific on the pick and roll, pick and pop stuff. Like, that's going to add some more versatility to the offense. And so, you compare that with our guards and things like that. And that's assuming that he were to be out there and start getting minutes from day one. Then, I think it's a player that the Chicago Bulls would definitely want to take a look at. Now, right now, he's listed at 27th on the Ringer. I really see him being maybe an early second round pick. I'm not sure that I'm willing to buy into a late first round pick, because I think that you're looking at more of a project player. And I think that with the Chicago Bulls, they're really not in the position to go for a real project like this, because you're really banking on getting to this upside. And so he's solid right now. I just think that if he doesn't pan out, then you could be looking at a player that, just maybe he ends up in the G League. Maybe he's a player that you stash. I'm not sure, but he's really not. There's the potential that he doesn't translate to the NBA. And so I don't think that the Chicago Bulls maybe would be wise in taking a look at him in this draft. Now, second round evaluation, maybe, but I just wouldn't take him as high as the Ringer has him right now at 26. And if any other mock has him in the late first, not willing to go for him there. So next, we're going to look at the player comparisons. And so there's three players that come to mind. And so the first player that he reminds me of is a player that the Chicago Bulls were, I was thinking maybe the Chicago Bulls would take a look at him last year, and that was Tyler Smith. And so Tyler Smith ended up going to the Milwaukee Bucks. And so remember with him, he wasn't very much of a shot creator, but what he was a three-point shooter at that height, 6'11". And he has a handle that's basic, but it wasn't anything that he could like shake a defense loose or anything like that. So, he kind of reminds me of a player that can just knock down threes at that height, and he's pretty mobile, could be versatile if he works out that way. And so that's the player number one that he reminds me of. Player number two, this is by the Ringer, and so they have him as David Bertans. And so I could see that a bit. I could see a little bit of shades of David Bertans in there. And also, too, lastly, they have him listed as a player that won an NBA championship in comparison here in Belicia. And so I definitely think that this is a player that you could see shades of that, being able to knock down the three-point shot, basic passing, nice little feel inside around the basket, and just essentially it's just the basketball IQ. Like, I can see that he definitely has that, but he's certainly going to have to get a bit stronger. And so, like I said, my final thing with him as far as the Chicago Bulls is something where I'm like, it's just too much of a project for the Bulls to really go with. But anyway, you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. Should the Chicago Bulls take a chance with Bogi Markovic? Or would you like to see the Chicago Bulls pass on this player? Like I said, I think that it's definitely a project here. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. And as we always say, go Bulls. And I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.